then start.
No more jokes now.
Only jokes you want recorded.
Just good ones.
Should we start or should we wait one more minute?
I was going to say wait till 20. We are already 21. I think we can start. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then a warm welcome from my side to our session from the discipline-specific guidance for DMP group. So here are some welcome notes. I think most of you know what to do in these virtual sessions. The link to the collaborative notes will be in the chat. Thank you, it's still there. And add your name at the attendee list in the collaborative notes, and you also find some more information in the collaborative session notes. Thank you. So really quickly, what we want to do today with you is a short introduction of the working group for all the ones who are coming the first time to one of our sessions. Then we will have some discipline-specific talks, one in social science, in chemistry, in health data, and in geoscience. And afterwards, we will have the presentation of the initial results of the online survey. I hope all of you are still participating in the survey. Afterwards, we will have a discussion in discipline-specific groups in parallel, and then a short wrap-up and next steps of action we will take. So really short introduction, who we are and what we are doing. So the working group is having its third session here, and we are having the aim to develop a discipline-specific guidance for DMP to create a common understanding and across disciplines for DMPs in general and in the content aspects specifically. And therefore we started from the Science Europe template and we worked on the template to create an online survey, but I will come later to that point. In the working group, we have now 63 members, so really good. We will have a meeting every 2 weeks with the co-chairs and a public meeting every 8 weeks. And we also did some workshops or we participated in some workshops to broaden the group to other initiatives that they are still part of our working group right now. And we also got an exchange with other groups like the one from Science Europe and so on, or the RDMO team or something like this. So we were still taking part or took part in some of these events. So what is our working program? So we are at the moment in our work package 3. So we already established the group and we created now the online server, which is running. I don't know if the link to the server is in the chat. So for other ones who were not active in the online survey, after the online survey, we will have discussions in workshops or in interviews with different disciplines to deepen the knowledge and to expand maybe the examples, the best practices. And afterwards, we will start with the preparation of the discipline-specific guidance catalog. And here you can find also our milestones. And that at the moment we are in at milestone 2, so we are working on that in months 6 to 10. Okay, great. And before we start now, I would like to hand over to Jasmine. So we prepared a Mentimeter to get to know you a bit better.
Hi, everyone. Super nice to have you with us today. I think you should be now seeing my screen. Please shut up. Okay, that's perfect. So if you can go to menti.com and enter the codes that you see at the top of the screen that I'm sharing, you can also find it in the meeting notes. It will be perfect. We would like to hear from you. So first of all, we are curious to know which country you are joining us today. From which country you are joining us? Okay, cool. We are already getting some results. We have some people from Canada, US, France, Germany. So also different time zones as well. So in that sense, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry, perhaps it was too much, but cool. So we have also some representation, quite some representation within Europe, but also outside Europe. It's always nice. That's a beauty, of course, with RDA. I see that Germany, US, and France are on the lead. Who's gonna win? Oh, we also have from Costa Rica. Very nice. Okay. I think we have 23 participants, but I will go to the next question. Okay. Can you tell a little bit more also, what is your discipline, field of expertise? It could be if you are a researcher, what is your field of expertise discipline? But if you're not a researcher, for instance, you are a research support, yeah, if you can also share that with us, that would be very nice. We have quite some variation. It's super nice. It's always nice to, of course, have people from all sorts of different domains. I see a lot of data management, the librarianship, advisor, but also a lot of practices like disciplines like biology, life sciences, chemistry, social sciences. That's super nice. So we have a wide group of people here. That's very nice. Okay, thank you very much. Then I will continue with the next question. But what is your role or function then? I know that some of you already provided that information, of course, in the previous question. But if you can tell a little bit more, like, are you a researcher, data support professional, funder, DMP tool provider, or publisher, or maybe your other? See, there are some responses, but I'm somehow not seeing them yet. That's very strange. I don't know how to fix this. apologies.
Menti has to hide them, so maybe they're hidden. You have to unhide them explicitly from the Menti menu.
Thanks so much. Sorry, I never had this experiences before. My apologies for this. Okay, thank you. This helps. So we have a lot of data support with us, also DMP tool providers, others, researchers. Okay, but it's nice that we have a wide group of people. It's always nice. Okay, so now we'll continue with the next question. If you can just type in a few words, what's your main motivation? So what made you come to this session? Maybe you're just curious, or you know quite a bit about already discipline-specific guidance, or you work a lot with DMPs. Yes, that's number one, the first one that popped up. State of the art regarding DMPs and templates. Increasing adoption by the community, definitely a very important one. Yeah, I think we are all involved with indeed DMPs, with grant proposals, or you need to write a DMP soon. Can imagine that. Most data management expertise is interdisciplinary. Yeah, true. Interest, that's super nice. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Unless there are more responses coming out, I will move on to the next question. Yeah, thanks a lot for your interest. There are all sorts of different motivations. That's super nice to see. Okay. Have you actually created one yourself, or maybe supported the creation of a data management plan? Yes. That was a quick answer. Supported was also a quick answer. Okay, there's also some notes. That's also good. So maybe there are also new things to learn in this session. Okay. Created and supported, both 6. They are going equal. That's good. But it's also nice to see that not sure is not an answer there so far. At least it's clear what the data management plan is. If it is not clear, obviously that's not a problem, of course. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I think that was the last question. So with that, I will stop the presentation. And I'll go back to the original presentation. It's here. So Daniela already introduced our group and our also milestones. So I want to talk a little bit more about the first milestone. It's a survey. As Daniela also already mentioned, we already distributed. It's for researchers, data stewards, or other data support professionals, or any other interested parties. And yeah, we want to identify the gaps and what's already known, overlaps between different disciplines. And we also actually want to collect contact info and connect with experts for the next step, which is discussion with experts. But we will hear more from that later in the session. With this, actually, I would like to now stop sharing because we also have with us speakers today. So if I'm correct, our first speaker is Anna-Sophie. Hi, Anna-Sophie, you're there. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see everyone. Now I see everyone back. Would you like to share your screen with us? We can't hear you, you're muted at the moment.
Yes, it's a bit noisy where I am. I hope it works. Let me just, yeah. Yes, I'm here to talk a little bit about data management plans from sort of from a social discipline specific of social science. And who can you see my slides?
It's loading.
Yes.
Yes, we can see. Thank you very much.
I just want to put them in presenters mode. I think they're working. Yeah, it was. Yes. So just shortly about me. I'm a consultant for SISTA, Consortium for European Social Science Data Archives, and of course we are most very interested in the whole field of data management and as such also in data management plans. And I have to say from the beginning, unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole session, and as I'm on another conference at the moment, so sorry about that. I discussed sort of within my networks what's the characteristic for social science when it comes to data management plans, and I didn't put that down. But one of the characteristics, at least in the moment, from a national point of view, at least, we're afraid that data management plan is not that much used. Unfortunately, it is a claim when getting money from the EU, but for other kind of projects, it's unfortunately of little use, at least in Denmark. Back to characteristic for social science. What we think is that very often, a social science project will have a multifaceted methods design. So there's used both qualitative and quantitative methods. So lots of sort of different backgrounds for the data to describe the data. Comes sort of as a consequence, multiple data types, and often in just one project, quantitative data, qualitative data, obviously. Also, the dimension that primary data that the researcher will collect by themselves, but also secondary data sets, such as data taken from another source, sort of pre-existing data. There can be open and restricted data. For instance, commercially owned data, that could be an interesting example of sort of restricted data. Sensitive data, obviously, or often we are sort of sampling on humans or doing projects. There would always be projects, but that's humans involved, and big data and a third characteristic I'd like to share in this short presentation is the thing that often metadata has to be produced manually. Often when I combine sort of, just very crude, of course, but from kind of, if you have a tool, sort of in the sciences, get a lot of tagging and versioning and time and day, blah, blah. Just sort of harvested from the tool. But in the social science, very often you need to, of course, as an example, the variable, you need to know the question, you need to know when was asked to whom, and what context, blah, blah, blah. Lots of sort of metadata that you as a researchers have to provide. So in that respect, again,
Anna-Sophie, we are losing you. Can you hear us? Okay. I see you're still in the participants. I will wait shortly, and if we can't reach you anymore, then I have to continue with the next speaker, but I hope. Okay. Okay, I'm afraid we lost Anna-Sophie. In that case, I would like to invite the next speaker. That's Daniela, our co-chair, and hopefully Anna Sophie will come back so we can continue where she left.
Okay, yeah, hello again from my side. So I'm quite presenting the DMP and chemistry really shortly. So within the NFDI for chemistry, we will have a really short group who is focusing on DMP in chemistry, but the group is not working yet, so we will start next year with this. So, but some, first things we discussed already. But before we, I would like to start with the DMP in chemistry. I would really shortly talk about chemistry and what does it mean. So when we are talking about chemistry, we are talking about molecules, molecules which were synthesized, analyzed, characterized, simulated, and so on. And chemistry is divided into different sub-disciplines in chemistry. And this is depending on the contact and as well as at the atoms. So in which way chemistry is splitted up in the different sub-disciplines. On the left-hand side, you also see related disciplines to chemistry, which are also working with molecules or products from chemistry. So this was really shortly, and coming now to the point, what we want to do today. So DMP in chemistry. As all research processes, it's also starting in chemistry with an idea or with the project description. And I'm so sorry, I have to turn off my video because my cooling is getting so loud. Sorry for that. Also important for DMP in chemistry is the data collection, which is taking place in different labs depending on the sub-disciplines. I still showed you, and during the data collection, the documentation is already starting in chemistry. In chemistry, you document nearly all steps of your experiment. So, and to the documentation, I will come on a later point. And also, the data analysis is an important step as well. And with the data analysis, which is normally done with any kind of software and tools. And also an interesting point are the legal obligation and conditions, because in chemistry, you have a huge range of research. So we are starting from fundamental research and it's going up to industry-funded research as well. And the last important thing is the data sharing and the long-term storage. So what or should be included in a DMP or in the guidance for the DMP in chemistry or from a chemical perspective is the part of the data collection and the analysis. And we are also having standards there, standards in formats, we have standards in methods, and a lot of more standards. We also have identifiers, so chemical identifiers for molecules, for products, for reactions, so chemical specific identifiers. We also have chemical controlled vocabulary and terminology. And I bring you here the, as an example, the Gold Book by UPAC, which is the compendium of controlled terminology, of chemical terminology, and software and tools I mentioned before in the formats. as I also mentioned before, the documentation is a very important thing in chemistry, and it is starting at a really, really early stage. And will be done in lab notebooks and frighteningly often on paper. So the really old lab notebooks are still alive. But we are still having a lot of electronic notebooks popping up, and they became popular. But they are still having sometimes problems because they are really specific to one subdiscipline. Some are a bit broader and can be used by more than one subdiscipline. But yeah, there is still more to be done in that field. And we have in chemistry the laboratory information management systems as well, which are shortly called LIMS. And they are IT application for managing data and supporting workflows in laboratories. So you see that we are still having a lot of documentation, but the documentation is still on a different level than it is in a DMP. But yeah, it should also be included maybe in a DMP or work together with a DMP. So, and I think I'm still running a bit out of time, so really quickly. So the legal obligation and conditions. So I looked up at the German, one of the biggest German funders, which gave information about research integrity. So here you can see some examples. I think they could also be quite good examples for the guidance for chemistry. And what I mentioned before, we have industrial funded research. So we're also dealing with these non-disclosure agreements. And the last one I want to talk about is the data sharing and the long-term storage. So here you can see some examples for repositories, and we are having here the same problem. Yeah, when I should call it problem, so it's not a problem. It's I don't know, sorry. So, but yeah, there are still repositories which are only dealing with some specific subject in chemistry, and so it's not a big repository possible for chemistry. So it's only having one issue normally in the repository. Okay, and with this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for sharing. And I was actually thinking quite a bit of the things you explained are also quite common in biology, molecular biology fields. Yeah, I see Brianna is also nodding. So it's super nice to share this. Thank you very much. And I think you have the next presentations because it is about health data from Lucas Bolsik. Let's see, shared a presentation with us. It's a video recording, I think.
Wait, let's see. Why isn't it coming up? Wait, let's see. I will share my.
And the idea is, by the way, to take questions after all these presentations, to take a short Q&A. But if you already have some questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. And apologies that we lost Anna-Sophie, but she said she's going to share the link to her slides.
Can you see my screen now with the video?
Yes, yes, okay. Thank you very much.
Then Zoom is over the play button. Wait. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Lucas Bolsik.
Can you hear it?
Collaborative Research Center 1382 Latvia Access.
Is it possible to increase the volume a little bit?
Yeah. Wait.
One of the tasks of the data
Thank you.
is to create a template for data management plan that the PIs of the CRC have to pull out for the sub-projects. The this short video, I will present the data management plan that was created specifically for the CRC and tell about the difficulties in filling it out. Launched in 2019, the CRC focuses on the study of the microbiota, metabolic pathways, and immunological circuits that make up the gut-liver axis and is part of the life sciences. We decided to use the Research Data Management Organizer, RDMO, for organizing the questionnaire. While the DMP was designed with the CRC in mind, it is also open-ended so that it can be used for other life science projects as well. Two control questions at the beginning clarify whether the DMP is part of the CRC 1382. When asked about the responsibility and accountability for research data and the completion of the DMP itself, a question was also included about who will take care of archiving the data after the project ends. Although the answer could be left blank, it still draws attention to the fact that this is an important part of data management and needs to be thought about. At the same time, the explicit question about an ORCID encourages researchers to create an ORCID if they do not already have one. A very important question was the type of laboratory journal used. In addition to creating a DMP template, another task of the data steward is to implement an electronic laboratory journal. With this question, it was possible to quickly clarify which subprojects may need support in switching to an electronic laboratory notebook or which products are already in use in order to organize the migration of the data if necessary. Asking about the amount of data which will be produced within the project forced the researchers to think about the data. However, it turns out that the scaling is too rough and most researchers chose 1 GB to 1 TB. To get an impression of the quota, this specification does not have at all. The main part of the DMP is about datasets. Here, the first challenge was to convey to the researchers what is meant by datasets and that there is no general definition of it, but that the project-specific consideration has to be given according to which criteria the classification of datasets makes sense. An important question at the dataset level was how to establish the link between an entry in the ELN and the associated dataset. Here, it helped a lot to recommend that researchers link using a pseudopath to the datasets. Difficult to answer were the questions under which conditions the dataset can be reused and whether and how to share the dataset with colleagues or then publish it. This was mainly due to the fact that the researchers still had little experience with publishing datasets and were therefore unaware of the need for a license statement for the data. Equally unfavorable was the conflation of whether to share a dataset within the CRC 1382 and whether to publish the datasets. Here, the distinction between sharing and publishing was not understandable and therefore was concerned about making the data digitally available to others before completing the analysis. The question of personal data concerned only a smaller portion of the researchers. This made it all the more surprising for the others that they were nevertheless asked to answer the follow-up questions. This is certainly a rather technical problem of the Research Data Management Organizer, but it led to confusion among the researchers. All in all, it appeared that the adapted questionnaire was successful for the researchers. Although there was some initial skepticism about the usefulness of the questions and the time required to answer them, the feedback was rather positive and encouraged the researchers to think about the research data and to consider some structures. After this initial response phase, there are now annual reminders to update the DMP.
Lucas is not with us, but we will pass the thanks to him, and thank you for sharing, Daniela. And then with that, I would like to move to our last speaker, Kristen Hansen, about geosciences. Perfect. Thanks for sharing your screen.
Hello, everybody. I would like to give a brief overview on DMPs and geoscience and related aspects. When we guided a team of researchers in geosciences on how to write a DMP for the first time, we thought that would be an easy task, taking the Science Europe template, having a few talks on their planned data analysis and writing everything down, and then we would be done. Well, we met for the first time and the researchers stated we probably cannot provide a use case for DMP. So they stated we do not create data, just maps. And getting into details, we asked them about data management and got to know, well, we do not use a specific data repository. We store data and code on GitHub, and that's fine for us. And finally, they evaluated the fitness for use of data by reviewing quality descriptions and found statements like the quality is assessed to be good in related reports, but they actually need spatially explicit quality and related provenance information. So taking this geoscience use case, what is geospecific in DMPs? We can say our data and data analysis focus spatial, temporal, and thematic aspects. We need and manage metadata with extended quality and provenance information, facilitating the structured description of geospecific data analysis, like the ISO 19115 or 19157. And we have specific tools for processing, like geoinformation systems, tools for managing metadata and data, like geometadata catalogs with spatial temporal filter. And of course, we also have spatial web services with specific interfaces for map visualization or geodata processing and data requests. However, in the end, we should all overcome the same issues. And as we in geoscience typically work in multidisciplinary research projects, we should find compatible solutions for the lack of awareness on DMPs and practicing good research data management, for the heterogeneity of in data, in analysis and management regarding information loss. And for instance, when storing specific metadata, like in our case, in project repositories first, and then in publishing the final results in multidisciplinary archives with a simplified metadata applied. And of course, we do have some lacks in discipline-specific guidance, very focused guidance. So our approach includes metadata, data, and tools. We include structured metadata fields in DMP templates, asking for smaller pieces of structured information, which can be provided and reused much easier. We provide tools for automated metadata extraction and metadata publishing. And we link these tools like a DMP tool and a catalog to facilitate a smooth and seamless work from a researcher's perspective. And we try to provide disciplinary guidance and consequences, guidances as small pieces of structured information to be directly included in DMP instance or as linked list to best practice documents, and consequences describing what would happen if a certain aspect is not addressed in a DMP, which is very interesting for us. And here we are working together with researchers from different disciplines and a smaller RDMO working group to point out common topics, consequences first, and then getting into details. So my takeaway my takeaway message, we need researcher-centered approaches to facilitate writing and updating DMPs by using the researchers' languages and providing predefined text and structured templates, and also better linking tools to facilitate this smooth and efficient research work. In geosciences, for spatial, temporal, and thematic data. And however, maybe we should start with creating a structure for all these guidances, like a guidance framework, being compatible across all these interesting disciplines, funding templates, and tools. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Kristen. This is really impressive work, and you're right, actually. It's indeed quite a good point to think about a framework now to share all this guidance, and you did quite some good work there, actually, thinking of all sorts of considerations. I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned here. Thank you so much for sharing this story.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Unfortunately, we have only 2 of our speakers with us in the session from the discipline-specific talks, but if you have any questions to Daniela or Kristen, we can perhaps spare 1 or 2 minutes. Apologies for rushing through the program. And if you like, you can also put them in the Google documents under the collaborative notes. So then they can come back to it later on, if you don't want to share a question at this moment. Okay, with that, I would like to pass the floor. Okay, there's already a question. Okay. Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I'm wondering if Daniela or Kristen would like to take it. Are these DMPs more localized to certain disciplines or even certain research environments? And how easy are they to take and use in different institutions?
Yeah, so I think across different institutions that must be not the problem. So when we are talking about chemistry, all the universities or the institutions with a focus on chemistry normally have all the sub-disciplines in chemistry. So I think they can reuse it in that way. And there was also the one for the funders. So I think, so when we are talking about the guidance here, so we are talking about normally the general templates, and the guidance can be adapted to every template. So it should help the discipline researchers to think about, okay, what is in their discipline and how to answer the questions on that. So they, so not the template itself can be adapted to the funders one, but the guidance should help with that.
Thank you very much, Daniela. And Kristen, would you like to adapt to that?
Yeah, I would like to add that we also try to use the Science Europe template, as it is not specific to a funding template or to an institution. However, some of the institutions do have own guidances on research data management, and of course you have to follow these. So DMP is a quite complex topic, addressing all these domain-specific needs. So we try to work with use cases, with linking existing guidances and use cases together to structure our ideas. But in the end, if you write a DMP, you always have to follow your institution's guidelines and best practice, and of course the subdisciplinary aspect, which is for example in geoscience is really differentiated. Yeah, we have so many specific use cases going out into the field and taking some data, or just analyzing synthetic data sets and using them to process to further process them.
Thank you very much, Kristen. We have one more question, but I would like to ask Daniela and Kristen if they can reply in the chat so that we can continue with the program, if that's okay. With that, I would like to invite Brianna. And thanks a lot for your talks, really quite inspiring.
Daniela, are you able to share the slides again?
Yes, I'm looking.
No worries. We're asking you to do many things at once.
Let's try to, if you like, I can share, Daniela, because I also asked you to reply back in the chat. Apologies, I didn't think about it. Okay, perfect.
No problem. Sorry for that. So we will start. That Jasmine already explained, right?
Great, thank you. So here what we're going to do is we're trying to show some of our very preliminary or initial survey results from the responses that we've gotten so far. But I do want to note that the survey is still open. So if you have not taken the survey yet, we would really like it if you can to give us more information to provide content for these guidance documents. And what we're showing here is our first kind of 86 completed responses. In this first slide, what you can see is our general demographics of responses. So the different boxes are representing the different roles that people selected as they identified. So we have kind of professor, postdoc or senior researcher, PhD candidates, students, research technicians, research support, or other. And so you can see that primarily the responses we're getting are from research support. And we've also broken these down by discipline. So you can see which disciplines we're getting, and we are getting pretty good responses across the discipline groups. So we had engineering sciences, humanities and social sciences, life sciences, and natural sciences. And actually in our survey, we break those down even further so we can get more specific insight into, in those general groupings, what discipline are they working in. And overall, so far, we have 25 countries represented in our responses, with the majority of those responses coming from Germany and the Netherlands. Next slide, please. So I'm going to, over the next couple slides, show some of the beginning questions that we asked so you can get an idea of kind of the responses we're getting. This first question was, what kind of research data do you use or are used in the domains you support? And so you can see here the diversity of data types that are being used across these disciplines on the x-axis, and on the y-axis is the count, so the number of people that responded that they use that type of data. And this was a multi-choice, so people could select multiple types of data, and many did. We often had people selecting many of these data types, which we've seen across our previous talks, is that people are not working with one type of data. Many of these disciplines, as you can see here, are using very heterogeneous data types. But with the most frequent ones being used are tabular data, images, and coder software across these disciplines. But you can see that this varies by discipline. So for instance, textual data is not commonly used in the natural sciences. Similarly, audio and audiovisual recordings. Next slide. The next question that we asked was, how do you or the researchers you support produce or collect data for analysis? And these are kind of generalized methods by which people might collect their data. And again, that's on the x-axis. And on the y-axis is the count of the responses. And the various colors are those discipline groups. And so this is letting us kind of see the methods by which people are collecting their data. And again, we can see that there's variability in this by disciplines, with humanities and social sciences primarily using kind of like surveys and interviews, though we see life sciences and engineering sciences are doing this as well, but natural sciences not so much. Whereas this differs based off of the methods. So it's going to be an interesting thing to kind of dig into. And I think another interesting one where it's looking at kind of the web scraping and crowdsourcing and seeing that that's primarily used in humanities and social sciences, but that engineering's using it as well. Next slide. And so the last one that we're going to show here today, but we have much more analysis to do and many more questions to look at, was looking at, do you or the researchers you support ever reuse existing data? And so on the x-axis are different the different responses that were available. So there was, yes, I reuse published data. Yes, I reuse data created by myself or my team. No, data is not reused. No, it's not reused, but that's because it's not available for my discipline. No, because there's some type of privacy or intellectual property consideration. No, because there's poor documentation, so it's not easily reusable, or I don't know. And so we can see here that the data is being reused across all disciplines, primarily in the published state or by their data created by their own team or themselves, but that in the social sciences and the humanities, there seems to be more of a problem, at least from this initial response, with data that has privacy considerations or poor documentation, whereas engineering is the primary one for it not being available for their discipline. And that is the end of the initial survey results that we're able to show today, but we're excited to kind of continue analyzing the data and seeing what distinctions we can see, and also digging into the, as I mentioned, the specific discipline categories, whereas here we're just looking at them in this grouping state. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are going now we start now with the breakout rooms. And actually in this breakout sessions, we will actually discuss 3 different questions. And for example, the first one is what topics should be asked during the interview. So you saw some base analysis from the survey which is running at the moment. Maybe, hopefully, most of you already took part, but you still can take part in the survey. So the next step is going into interviews. And so we would like to discuss this in the different breakout rooms. And another question is what is unique in terms of data management needs in your discipline. And the third question is, are the needs of your discipline reflected in the questions we asked in the survey? Next slide, please. We have 4 different breakout rooms. According to your discipline, you can choose one of them. You will find yourself, I'm pretty sure. And then we will discuss these proposed questions. We will use a Padlet to document or report everything, which is all ideas and comments. And we will meet again in 25 minutes. Next slide, please. I will just briefly explain the Padlet for those who have never used it before. You do not need a login. You should be able to enter the Padlet and then it should work. If you have a login, you can log in and then everybody can see which comment you made. Next slide, please. So the Padlet is organized in 3 different columns. It is the different questions I mentioned before, and below you see, next slide, please. Next, below each of the questions, you see the 4 main discipline groups. And so according to your breakout room, you choose the box which fits your discipline. And then you can press add comment. And I really would like that if you add a comment, please first name your particular discipline. So it is only discipline groups, as you see, so that we can really see your specific answer or comment. Okay, so next slide, please. So now we start the breakout rooms. Choose the breakout room according to your discipline and have fun and a nice discussion.
Brianna, do you see if other ones are back?
Not quite. It looks like they'll all close in 11 seconds.
Okay, perfect.
We're good now.
Okay, perfect. Then we would like to have a short wrap up about the breakout session. Sorry for that. And who was in the humanities and social science breakout and could let us know a bit about the discussion and the points you filled in the Padlet.
We did not talk about a reporter out, but if my group is okay, I can share. I hear no loud dissenting. So yeah, so we had a really great conversation. It was a nice mix of people who had backgrounds in the humanities and social sciences, but were also doing a lot of researcher support. And we talked, I would characterize it as talking about a lot of the vocabulary differences and the not even the exceptions, but the different language and workflows and culture that exists around the humanities and social science research. So talking about different kinds of data and what that means when you try to share it. So whether it's something like an oral history or whether it's like notes that you're taking as you're writing a biography, these ideas of data collection that some of these researchers might not even think about as data. So some of the questions about moving forward with interviews related to that. And we talked a lot about different unique things within data management. One of the ones that came up frequently was the idea of workflows and publishing, how a lot of these disciplines are already tapped into more of the archival workflow as opposed to the data sharing workflow, and having a conversation with researchers about what translating that might look like, and also convincing them that what they're doing is worth sharing as well. And it doesn't have to be open sharing. It can be, there's the different flavors of fair data. And so that was probably the biggest gap in terms of, talking about this topic on a disciplinary scope or level. So it was a good discussion. I word vomited a little bit in the notes, but.
Thank you, Shen. So life science, the next one.
Hi. So I'm going to wrap up the life science part. I'm aware we didn't capture so much in the notes here on the Padlet because we had a very active discussion actually, which also went beyond. That was also very valuable, by the way. So I really thank all the participants of the breakout session because we talked about quite some important points. I wrote them down in the collaborative notes, so they are not forgotten and missed. They are at the bottom of the shared notes documents in Google Docs. But to sum up a little bit, yeah, so one thing that was actually really interesting and a very good point is that there's quite some commonality in terms of data management practices between different disciplines. So it's you sometimes see that disciplines that don't necessarily seem to be very much related, that are using the similar type of methods, approaches to collect data, and then some of them are quite advanced already in terms of how they manage their data, while for some others it's not the case at all, and then they learn from each other. So that's also something important to take into account, that working in different disciplines doesn't mean that you don't have any overlaps. And there's actually a lot to learn from each other. But this doesn't mean that there are certain types of data files, the data practices that are very specific to a certain discipline and require really focusing on that and require additional and that's guidance specific to that discipline. And one thing that we talked about, maybe actually Brianna can back me up because she shared a very nice guidance there about the data primaries. Do you want to share that, Brianna? Because you know that more than me.
Yeah, I can add that link in the chat here. What I was talking about, we had talked about this idea of different data types, and that data management could be guided by those data types, as Yasmin was saying, because a lot of the work is interdisciplinary. And so one of the things I shared was out of the data curation network, where they're creating curation primers for various data types, and the idea that maybe some of that could be adapted for data management planning, since what happens upstream is going to impact the curation downstream. Is that what you were referencing? Okay.
Thank you so much, Brianna. And yeah, apart from that, we did talk also a bit more about what to cover in interviews. And yeah, one very nice mention was that to see that, okay, the DMP, it's needed, but the process itself is actually more important. And to also think about the reusability. So also it's quite important to think about, for instance, you share within your own discipline your data, but it could be completely relevant and very interesting for a completely different discipline. So in that sense, that's also a very good point to take into account, and their proper documentation is quite crucial, because things you think are clear for your discipline to describe the data might be completely unclear for a completely different discipline. So there I would leave it, because we still have 2 more breakout sessions.
Okay, Yvonne, would you like to do the next one?
What next one?
The natural science.
Oh, if I can understand everything that you can summarize. So we had also a good discussion, and it was a long discussion, especially on what topics we should include in the interviews, and we mentioned that it would be nice to getting use case for different topics here, like documentations or data management, and also to distinguish which section is important to which researcher. I think it was according to this different parts in the survey, I think, Daniela. Then there was also a discussion about PIDs and identifiers. So maybe, Daniela, do you continue, because your comments are very short?
Okay, so what we were discussing also, that in natural science you already have a physical sample, and what to do with the physical sample. So this is not so much reflected in a DMP. And in the last point of our discussion, we also had that the information that it should be reflected, the information you needed is not nearly the same than the information which is provided. So the metadata you need for an experiment to work with the sample is not necessarily the metadata you need or the information you need from the provided one. So therefore we also have this gap, and yeah, maybe we can also reflect this in the interviews or workshop. And the other points we were also discussing about is it's not directly focused of one discipline, so it's more abroad. So when we have the project structure and the DMP, so if the DMP or the purpose of the DMP, so is it for you, is it for the funder, is it for the institute? So this could also be make a difference in the DMP itself. And also if the project structure is reflected in the DMP, so this could also differ from one discipline to one discipline, but it also can differ from the institute, the university, or so on. So, but I think these were also important points from our discussion. Yeah, this was from Nature and Science, I think, or Any more comments from the other participants? Otherwise, I will hand over to Santosh.
Hey, everybody. Our group was the engineering sciences one. We were a slightly smaller group of just one participant and myself. We had quite an interesting discussion. With regard to the first question, we thought topics on interviews, and this kind of the theme carried over to one of the other questions as well, is that the questions in the interview, we wanted to focus on very specific aspects of what researchers do in sense of the equipment they use and the conditions under which the equipment is used, and that guidance on these things would be valuable, and therefore these things to be focused during interviews. This also was reflected in the third question in terms of what needs to be questions reflected in the survey. We felt some of the participants felt that the questions might have been a bit too general in the survey, and that specifically targeting one or more aspects of research questions would be valuable. And I think this can be something that can be addressed in the surveys and also in the guidance specifically talking about it. And I think it kind of brings up the old conversation of, is it a discipline-specific guidance we want or a discipline-specific DMP itself? But since we are doing a specific guidance, I think seeing how we can adapt it, I think that is important. There are some other things as well, similar to issues about partners in research institutions and how data management affects that this can vary by disciplines and how the partnership affects the data management. And I think that covers pretty much all of it.
Thank you, Santosh. And with this, we are coming to the end, and it's up to you, Santosh.
So first, thank you everybody for attending the session. We really appreciate you continued support and participation in this. First off, the survey has been sent out, and we would like you further help in distributing the surveys. If you've not had a chance to look at the survey, please do. The link is available in the collaborative document. We will be analyzing further results and sharing that in the future. Our next step with regard to interaction would be to conduct interviews and like you saw in the questions today, we do want your input on who you'd like us to interview. There is again a link in the collaborative document where you can suggest yourself or others you think would be very interesting to interview regarding the system-specific guidance on DMPs. Yeah, I think somebody can post the link in the chat also to that document. That would be quite useful. We also have the case statement available for you to look at it again. And again, thank you for participating in the session. Is there anything else we would like to add, Brianna, Daniela?
It's only that we also have a list already. We shared the list with in the documents. Who are we contacting to share the survey? So if you have a moment to take a look, and if you see, no, you missed this very important contact, if you can add it, we would really appreciate it. That would help us as well to reach out to more people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin. Yeah, that's what I missed. Yes, please add contacts to others we could send out the survey to.